Hello, I am Sinfogel. Okay, let's check out the new singles, shall we? There are 4 new ones for the month of November, and they are all very excellent in their own right. So there are the timestamps right there in the video, so you can skip to the one you're interested in checking out, but we can get us started here. I think it's appropriate we start this with the queen herself, Olivia and Midnight Lycanroc. This unit finally gets a Singrid. And back in the day, in the long distant past of August 2019, very naive me downloaded Pokemon Masters and ruined his life. But back then, the only thing people talked about was about how broken Olivia is as a unit. So the first thing I did was reroll for Olivia, and I do not regret it one bit. She carried me through all content in the game. Back then, Olivia used to be the most dominant sync pair in Pokemon Masters. No other unit even came close to her level of offensive self-sufficiency. And the reason is that you buff once with Carlos Diamonds and Olivia's pretty much ready to go. And this went uncontested until Red happened, of course, but there isn't any magic to Olivia. She's just a unit with very good stats, a great trigger move, and an even greater trainer move that just complements her kit very nicely. So let's do a quick overview of Olivia as a unit. Like I mentioned, amazing stats. You get a very decent bull for a striker, an excellent attack stat. Honestly, it's refreshing to see stats this good after seeing some of the Dynamite sync pairs for November, and not throwing any names out there, but you know who you are. And we got Rock Throw for a spammy 1-bar move with accuracy issues, X Attack to raise your offense, Stone Edge for a 3-bar move with accuracy issues, and the crux of Olivia's kit is Hard as Diamonds because this fixes her as a unit. You raise accuracy by a couple of stages, and it also has a Dire Kit Plus integrated with the punishment of lowering your special defense by a couple of stages, but this can be fixed with defensive support like Misty. So they try to dampen Olivia's bulk, but there are workarounds to the drawback of Hard as Diamonds. So the reason this trainer move is so strong is because Stone Edge is already a plus crit move, so when you give it a couple crit stages, you reach maximum critical hit rate on a single action. And when you raise your accuracy by a couple of stages, you can fully fix Stone Edge and Rock Throw. So Olivia uses this thing once and she's ready to go. This was especially useful for co-op content, and this also paired very well with Olivia's only passive, which is Amped at 1. This raises your speed by 1 stage whenever you land a critical hit, so you just maintain your own gauge, spam attacks, do Stone Edge all the time, deal good damage, and there is Olivia. And to this day, she's still an excellent striker, but as the game and content progress, things like Full Forces just started demanding very intensive damage, and the problem with Olivia is that she had no multipliers, so she reaches a damage ceiling where the only way to augment her offense is through defense drops, so yeah, that is fine, but other strikers started giving her competition, people who have actual multipliers. So Olivia was waiting for a while for her grid, and the only thing she needed was a single multiplier, but her grid gives her 3 multipliers, and this is more than enough for Olivia to reminisce her days of glory, so she's back in action, baby. Okay, let's check out the 1-5 grid. You get your rudimentary tools, all your NPRs and MGRs, so honestly 1-5 Olivia is already a very excellent unit because you kinda really wanted a Stone Edge MGR to help with gauge, because 3-bar moves are a little difficult to spam without very intensive speed support, so the MGR just helps you with the sync countdown and whatnot. So the 2 out of 5 is when Olivia starts getting her chunky tools. You get Inertia in particular. This allows Olivia to sync nuke and more or less fix the DPS she's missing compared to other units. And just if you don't want to do any funky sand stuff, an example grid I would do is something like this. Just get all your MGRs and MPRs for things like Battle Villa, and this way you just spam Stone Edge, you get Inertia for your Sync Nuke, and Amped up 2 for Stone Edge. This stacks with your innate Amped at 1, and you will raise your speed by 3 stages whenever you land a critical hit. So you can pretty much max speed on the first round of combat, and Inertia would be ready to go to start launching very powerful sync nukes, especially when complemented by Olivia's very high attack stat. So at 3-5 is when we get the really funky tools. Olivia can become what Kukui tried to be, because she can buff her offense quickly, unlike a Kukui. So you get some sand utility tiles down here. Sandblaster 5 is a multiplier for your sync under Sandstorm, so if you're doing this, you kind of want to pair Olivia with Acerola. Surisand 3 for an actor multiplier, so you give Olivia the critical strike 2 lucky skill, you will have a 50% multiplier, and then her Stone Ages will start chunking very, very hard. And Sounds of Time 3, pardon me, this is more consistent than Stone Age MGR, even though you could get both. Sounds of Time 3 is better because MGR is still random, so you don't know when it's going to happen and if you can depend on it, where you get a constant speed buff from Sands of Time when Sandstorm is active. Of course, you will want the Sand Shelter. This is available at 1.5, but you need this to prevent sand from chipping away at Olivia and also wasting precious weather time. And doing all this, you can also get Inertia to get an extra multiplier for your sync. And this more or less turns Olivia into a tech unit, because techs have the name multiplier, and there is the very few lucky ones who get an additional multiplier for that. The greatest example is Koga. So when the conditions are set up right, when you have sand and you also max your speed, then Olivia can erase anything. And it's kind of funny how they didn't give her this 6-star EX already, because she could erase an entire row of enemies if she manages to land all the crits with her AoE sync. So if you want to see her do some insane numbers, something you can do is this. Yeah, you have to sack Sorisa 3 or maybe Sands of Time 3, something like this for maximum power, and this way you get a greater buff for your sync, and this will hurt really bad. So that's about everything Olivia can do, but it's hard to ruin a unit that has a base kit so excellent like Olivia. I guess the only other utility you could consider is Witty Combat 3, because this raises your special defense in a pinch, but you should be protecting Olivia with defensive support if she is going to take some hefty damage on a battle for whatever reason. So in general, just having one multiplier was enough for Olivia, but having all these tools, oh boy. She's an excellent unit. I cannot recommend her enough. And talking about the OGs, we also have Blue and Pidgeot, one of the oldest 5-star gadgets in Pokémon Masters. And much like Olivia, Blue has excellent stats and a brutal 3-bar move in Hurricane, but his primary issue is the lack of multipliers, and that really limits the ways you can augment his offense, but his grid gives him some. So let's look at his base kit real quick. We got amazing stats. This is one of the highest bulk indexes for any striker in the game. I think it competes with the 2020 Solgaleo, but please don't quote me on that, I am not sure. But case in point, you will not have issues tanking with Blue. He can eat sinks, he won't require major healing to get by any encounter. And you also have the perk of a Mega Evolution, which greatly augments your special attack and speed to help your striking, so that is very nice. You get a 2-bar move in Air Slash. It has a 30% chance of flinching, so it gives Blue some tech utility. And extra special attack to raise your offense. Air Coder for a 2-bar move. AoE has +1 critical hit radio. And Smell Ya Later raises your accuracy, evasion, and critical hit rate by 1 stage per use. So, when you Mega Evolve, you also lose Air Slash for Hurricane, and this is the bread and butter of Blue's kit, because it has an extremely high base power at the cost of low accuracy. So the problem here is that even if you buff twice with Blue, +2 accuracy buffs is not enough to fix a Hurricane. You can still miss. So you either give him more accuracy or you use Rain Dance, because on the rain, Hurricane can never miss, even if the enemy stacks evasion buffs. So Winona plus Blue can be an okay combination, but it's very gauge hungry, so I tried using it in the past and not that great. Your passives are almost never coming to play, because maybe you will get hit by Bulldoze every blue moon, but it will barely matter. So overall, a very strong kid, very self-sufficient, and the grid gives us exactly what we want here. So, at base, the grid is very dry, but you get Hurricane MGR3, which is very important to increase his ability to maintain the Hurricane spam, and Hurricane accuracy plus 10. So with this and a couple accuracy buffs, Blue can finally fix Hurricane evasion, Hurricane misses, pardon me. You also get NPRs. Something important here is that you don't get X special attack NPR, only a couple NPRs for your trainer move, which is a little weird, but it's just what DNA decided to go for. But when you raise Pidgeot to the 2-5 grid, this is when things start getting real nice for him. Instead of X special attack NPR, you get a Mindswell 2, so this is a 30% chance of raising the stat whenever you attack and land a hit successfully, so that is a little better in my opinion. And you also get your Fierce multiplier, Brutal Clarity. This is Lily's multiplier, whereby the more you raise your accuracy, the more increases your base power. But when you consider that your trainer move raises your accuracy innately, and you also get pinpoint entry, this is a first, pinpoint entry raises your accuracy, so this is kinda meh when compared to things like sharp entry, grand entry, or speedy entry. Pinpoint entry actually works really well for Blue, because with one accuracy buff in addition to the other couple from your trainer move, you can always land Hurricane, so that is nice. And you get an extra accuracy buff upon Mega Evolving, so you get plus 4 accuracy to enhance Brutal Clarity. And with that multiplier, you can raise Hurricane to... let me see real quick the base power. I think that would be 180 base power, 181 or something like that. So that's almost the same as using a Sync every time you hit with Hurricane. So this is actually perfect for Pidgeot. Like, this is probably one of the best units that could have gotten that multiplier, to be honest. And at the 3-5 grid, we also get an extra multiplier. We can get Harry 5. And you kind of know my opinions about Harry as a multiplier. When you use this, what you need to do is pair Pidgeot with another Flinch user, because Flinch wears off really quickly, so you kind of want to pair him with Acerola, so Acerola uses Astonish, and right afterwards Pidgeot should be using Hurricane in the hopes that Acerola flinches and you can fully use Harry. Because this is a plus 50% multiplier, it's actually extremely chunky, so Blue should be able to erase anything provided you land the flinching condition beforehand. And with this, you get an excellent striker. Very good offense. Pinpoint entry helps with Hurricane's accuracy issues. Hurricane MGR to try and keep spamming that. And you also get some other utility. I can see an Air Color set being viable for Blue, because Brutal Clarity would also benefit Air Color, and you can try and spam this as much as possible. Because you also get Air Color Critical Strike 3, and you can barely reach that. That is very nice. And I would not recommend the Sync nuking with Blue, even though we get a lot of Sync tiles here, because Mega Syncs are nerfed innately, so this doesn't reach a very high damage ceiling compared to other units who have a straight multiplier for their Syncs, so kind of skippable. And you can also try to use a flinching set with Air Slash Aggravation 1 and all these Air Slash tiles, and you can also get an Air Slash Accuracy if you want. But this kind of thing works really well for Legendary Arena, where you can use a triple flinching team with like Salazzle or Steven and constantly hammer down the boss with flinches. And because you have Harry 5, you're pretty much guaranteed to always have this multiplier active and enhance the power of Air Slash. So if people have used Swanna successfully for flinching before, then you can totally use Air Slash Pidgeot for that, but at the cost of your Mega Evolution, of course. And you also get a lookalike too for a meme tanking set. I don't know. I'm not saying that you should tank with Blue, but it can happen because his bulk is very nice. So overall, this is a great grid. It pretty much did everything Blue could have possibly wanted. So baby, we are ready to go with this guy. He is an excellent unit. It's time to get festive, my friends, because Rosanta and Delibird are back. And this unit met a very unfortunate situation pre-grid, because it was nearly directly outclassed by Signals with Blue. Rosanta's biggest perk is that her Gauge Acceleration buffs speed, and Gauge Acceleration is multiplicative, so the more speed you have, the more gauge you will get. But when Signals with Blue got buffed to have to the top Pepper Alley, that pretty much sealed Rosanta's fate to be outclassed by Blastoise. all the time, unless you use her on niche Hail compositions alongside Summer Steven. And that still holds true for her grid because most of her utility stems from Hail. So if you don't have Summer Steven, I don't think you should be pulling for Rosanta. Blastoise is still pretty much better, but at 2-5 you start getting your Hail tiles, and that's when Rosanta can carve a niche for herself. So the base kit is okay. This is an attack-oriented support unit. It's offensively oriented. The stats remind me of Astauland, where you have decent defenses, physical defense, but a little bit of a squishier special defense. And you also get Aerial Ace, whatever, X-Attack Call to complement Summer Steven. Please don't use this with Summer Steven. I am begging you. And all the presents. This is an interesting turn move because it gives you acceleration, raises speed for the entire party by 1 stage, and it gives you a random buff for any stat for a couple of stages. And this is more so a perk of the move because you're using acceleration when you are ready to attack, and getting the buff is kinda nice. If you get evasion for your tank, that is great, but it's just a nice gift, if you will, that Rosanta can give you, but it's not the focus of the trainer move. Drill Peck is decently a strong attacking move, so if you want Rosanta to deal damage, this would be a good way to go. And the passives are nice. You get Wide Awake to prevent things like Hypnosis from landing, which have been happening on full forces lately. And Snow Shelter plus Healing Hail to once again pair on Hail team compositions. So when considering the team archetype for Rosanta, which is Hail alongside Summer Steven, you kind of want to skip a Revenge Boost 4 and Hasty Hail because you get so much gauge of Summer Steven himself from his multiple move gauge refreshes and acceleration of Rosanta's turn move. But you can consider all the presents MP refresh so that you can have more accelerations through the battle. And over here we also get Drill Peck MGR3 because you kind of want to use this for a little bit of chip damage, as well as Hail Rally. This is a new passive. It has a 20% chance of raising your critical hit rate for the entire party whenever you use a move under Hail. So this can be nice if paired alongside Candies or something, I don't know. And used to help Rosanta's damage output as well. Stoic 4, great chances, 50% chance of raising your defense whenever you land. So this complements Ice Shell because this raises your defense by 50% under Hail. So when you do this and this, you get a decent Hail tank for physical damage. Although I don't really like using Delibird for tanking because it only gets Healing Hail. Use 1 tick of regeneration per action with no additional healing bursts. So that's where Glacia kind of triumphs over Delibird as a tank. But Delibird gets more buffs. And you also get a team speedy entry to help your gauge. So if you do this, you could maybe forfeit all the presents MP refresh. If you're using Delibird, you want to end the battle quickly at any rate. And if you forfeit something like maybe Hail Rally, if you don't feel like buffing with Rosanta and Stoic 4, you could get Cold Front. Cold Front summons a Hailstorm when the battle starts, so you could try to buff Summer Steven right away when the battle begins and get them damaged a lot quicker. So that is nice, and besides that, there is not much to do with Rosanta's grid. Power Flux 3 is a multiplier, but it's not strong enough. Like, if she had gotten maybe something like Tough Cookie, or, I don't know, the Brown, whatever, Furious Brown, then she could have done decent damage, but without a straight multiplier for Drill Peck, it's still a little underwhelming. You also get Aerial Ace and Mad Stream 4, but you buff attack with X-Attack Call anyway, and you can also get the Emperor Fresh if you are so inclined as to buff your attack to the max, so really no need, even though all the presents could even buff your attack itself. So Rosanta is a good unit, but only when paired with Summer Steven, so if you don't have him, I really wouldn't bother with this, unless you do a meme archetype with Candies, but that is your prerogative. Last but not least, we have a unit I regretted pulling at the time, Siebold Octillery, and he's somewhat strange. As a tech unit, he does very unique things, but his kit holds him back severely. Because he does two things. He can lower accuracy and burn things, but it's very niche and it's hard to find applications for that. Because you kind of have to deal with the shortcomings that Octillery brings to the table in order to even think about using this. So Stat-wise, he's decent. He has great bulk, but his issue is that he gets no recovery whatsoever, which is kinda cruel because he can raise his defensive stats with his trainer moves, but not even his grid offers any type of healing. So he's geared towards more as a disruptor, and you cannot tank with Octillery unless you give him support from things like Swanna, for example. And the moves are nice. You get Octazooka. This is a strange move that has a 50% chance of lowering the target's accuracy, and it also has accuracy issues itself. But Octillery has piercing gaze, so you can never miss attacks. So you don't have to worry about missing with Octazooka in an ironic twist of fate. And Scald is a 3-bar move. It's a little weak for a 3-bar move, especially because we are using the 5-5 Octillery as an example here. Yeah, it's 87 base power, which is very disappointing, but it has a 30% chance of burning the target. So an interesting team structure could be Octillery plus Torkoal. So you can have Octillery burning things for Torkoal ahead of time, but as a 3-bar move, it's really expensive, and Octillery is slow. It has gauge issues. And besides that, the Sync increases in power if the target is burnt, and you also get Hostile Environment 1 to increase the chances of Scald burning, and Fortuitous for a random chance of increasing any stat by 1 stage. So it's a unique combination of actions, hard to justify unless you are doing meme runs with Flannery plus Signature Blue, for example. So the 1-5 grid, underwhelming, nothing really worth looking at. We got a steady aim, but so far the enemies cannot remove your critical hit buffs through any means, because they never have haste or anything, so it's not very useful, but it might be someday, who knows. If you want to use Octillery efficiently, you kind of have to go for a 2-5 grid, 3-5 preferably, because this is when Octillery becomes a complete monster. So you don't get any tanking utility, but you get a lot of multipliers to try and fix Octillery offensively, which is what it desperately needed to function in battle. So first off, you have 2 ways of Octillery to increase his critical hit rate. You can use Focus Rush to increase your crit after using a Sync, or you can use Eagle Eye 4 with Octazooka. So that's a 50% chance of boosting your critical hit rate whenever you attack. And this is handy because it means that you can use Octillery alongside Flannery, and they both self-sufficiently, where Octillery needed crit support beforehand to be able to do okay damage. And considering that you will be spamming Octazooka with this, you could consider Octazooka this combo blade. This is an additional chance of dropping accuracy. So you get the base rate of Octazooka and then another chance of dropping accuracy. So you could get the 2 accuracy debuffs at once. And because of that, and because you are always spamming Octazooka, then I can maybe recommend this in power. But you know my opinion about debuffing multipliers, and I stray away from them. Besides that, you can ignore the Octazooka gimmick and go for Burn synergy with Scald. So this could pair well with Flannery. So both of them can benefit from the Burn multiplier, and you can also go for Critical Strike 3 for an actual proper multiplier. Scorcher 2 is a bit of a bait tile because if you're burning the sides, they are only attacking once, maybe, before you kill them. And if you are burning the Centermon, they usually have a burn resistance, so this is not going to be as useful as you might think. But if you have nothing else to do with your energy, I guess you could do that, but you still want the crit self-sufficiency. But I think all these applications pale in comparison to Sync nuking Octillery, because over here we get a monster tile. Rising Tide. This gives Octillery the multiplier that Lyra gets, where if you cap at 14 buffs, you increase the power of your Sync by like 500 base power. It's something insane. And Octillery is a tech to begin with, so you can multiply this alongside the burn from Octillery's innate Sync multiplier. So I cannot really interpret the damage this would deal, but you go for this, and you go for this, and for Focus Rush for the crit self-sufficiency, Octillery can erase anything and its entire lineage in a single Sync. I can easily see this doing 30k damage when the conditions are set up right. This is actually I don't know. I kind of want to pull for 3-5 Octillery just to see the damage, but I don't have the gems for it, and I'm sure somebody else will wait for that to happen. But trust me when I say this, Rising Tide is a crazy multiplier, and the fact that I even thought about giving this to somebody means that we might see it in the future, so wow, that is crazy. But yeah, Octillery became good. It's no longer a meme unit, it has offensive utility, which kind of disappoints me because I wanted to use this as a tank. But you got your multipliers, and Octillery can finally function, so that is nice. But you needed to 5 minimum for this to work, so keep that in mind when pulling. But yeah, I think that's all I can say about Siebold. That's about it. Thank you so much for your support and for watching, and see you next time.